Jazz hands.
Hello, everybody. Jazz hands. Right? That's what we're doing today. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There. Day after show live. We are back. We are here. We are in the Pacific Northwest. Some of us, Neil's in the bathroom on a Sunday. But
it feels like I'm in the Pacific Northwest. It's been raining every day. You have sun.
The weather is beautiful here in Portland. Ahead of tonight's show at Edgefield Concerts on the Lawn. Which is going to be another beautiful venue.
So technically, Portland,
Troutdale. Sorry, yes,
which
just
is
like
an amazing
Seattle
name.
Carnation last night.
Yeah.
But yeah,
just Troutdale is an incredible name for a town. Only in Oregon,
you get places, names like Vancouver that you won't find anywhere else. We drove through on the way in here, very
never heard of Vancouver.
Names.
Yeah,
never. Vancouver, Oregon. Where's that? Anyway, we're here today to talk about last night's show in Seattle, or Carnation, just outside the city. Beautiful, beautiful farm. We are joined by our good friend of the pod, Brad Solari, is back today. He's here to talk about his first Cotter show, which is kind of hard to believe.
No way. Really?
Yeah, first one.
Oh, man.
Haven't seen him since Red Rocks last year, so.
It was a good night last night, and Brad was originally only going to do the Frost. But folks, peer pressure works. And if you berate him enough, he will go to more shows.
That is true.
Interesting.
Currently working on Gooseness right now. But Brad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Feeling good. Ready for another night of Goose tonight. And last night did not disappoint for my 20th show last night.
Nice.
So finally hit that number, which probably is nothing to you guys, but it's a solid number. I'll take it.
Hey, I'm no Ryan Storm. That's a great number. That's an excellent number. And I appreciate you bringing the positive vibes, the good vibes out there to the shows, because Ryan has just been destroying them for 3 shows straight. So, thank you, Brad.
Guess what I will not be doing today? Being upset at Goose, because jams are back. Jams are back. We were talking about before the show. Brad was like, Brad, you were saying like, I'm just excited to be here. I'm going to be happy with whatever they play. And I was like, Brad, don't pretend you're a vibes guy. We know you're not. We are the same here.
I know. I just try not to be too critical when I'm at the shows. I just want to have fun. And my wife was with me last night. Say hi to my wife. She's driving. She came
matching shirts. I love it.
Yep. So she went to her 5th show last night and really enjoyed, especially the second set. So
nice round numbers for you guys. That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, we had an amazing crew last night. Soundboard rail spot to be. We had, obviously my mom, Garrett, you, shout out to Jeff as well. We met a couple who lives like in Carnation, who was seeing their first show, who, were very excited. They loved it. A lot of friends last night, getting out, I guess, the first proper quote unquote West Coast show. But this venue, Brad, I'm curious your thoughts on the venue overall, but I thought it was amazing. Like just the farm, trees all around, the stars were out in the second set. It was gorgeous. What did you think of it?
It was great. I loved it. It was a perfect venue. I thought for Goose, and it's not, it wasn't overly full. Like it was nice and roomy. I just liked the layout. It was all flat and then surrounded by evergreens, and everything was easy to get to and from the bathroom, to get a drink, get back. There was very little line at the porta potties, even at the set break. So great venue. I would definitely go back. It kind of, I mentioned it to Ryan at the show, but it kind of reminded me of, without being a racetrack, kind of reminded me a little of Portland Meadows when I saw Fish there a couple times in the late 90s. Just a flat field and everything is easily accessible. This was just much prettier.
Yeah, I also felt that the demographic was really interesting last night because you had an absolute ton of families, ton of young kids. There were some in line who were like really excited to be going to the show. Also some people obviously looked like they were seeing their first show. And then you get the mix of, the very Pacific Northwest demographic of like old deadheads. So you had a really interesting mix of, like older people and like, older than you guys, and young kids and families and stuff. So it was a really cool vibe last night. You know, they had a rule, like a lot of venues where you can bring chairs and stuff in, that there's like a certain limit to how far forward you can have a lawn chair. So they had this like big plastic thing for like the main like pit area, which stopped a little bit in front of the soundboard, and we were just behind there in the beginning of the chairs. So there was a ton of space in the pit, which was interesting. I think, you know, it looked like there were a lot of people spreading out in behind with the chairs and everything like that. But I thought, you know, the crowd started a little low energy at the beginning. It took them a little bit to get dialed in, but once they got dialed in, the energy was absolutely phenomenal throughout the show right now. So it was great. Well, let's dive in, because Neil, I know you went to bed last night.
I did go to bed. I didn't
really hit it hard for a Saturday night.
I didn't listen to a single note, but I did stay up for the show on Friday night, which is why, of course, I couldn't make it up through this Saturday night show.
You're good for one West Coast show a week.
West Coast shows just like tear you apart, man. You know, staying awake till like 2 a.m, 1 a.m. to listen to a show, that's hard.
Half the reason why I'm doing this leg of tour is so I don't have to stay up until 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah, just follow the time zones. Just be in the time zone.
Exactly.
And then you're all good.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Well, let's start off with the first few songs here, Brad. Hot Love, The Whales, and Ate Up All the Cake. Your thoughts?
3 nice, you know, solid energy. Well, I should say Hot Love is like it's a great song anywhere it's played. Typically, I prefer it as an opener or an encore. So that was great. Great way to get the party started. The Whales, we talked about it when it was happening. It had like a different almost feel to it at the beginning, and I don't know, I enjoyed that version. I think it's a good, you know, first two to three song, one of the first 2 to 3 songs to play. That's a good song to play early, get the place going. And then Ate Up All the Cake. I feel like last time I did a pod, they covered that, and I love it. Great cover. I actually did hit the bathroom then because I was thinking some jams were coming. So I was like, I got to go quickly hit the bathroom before this set explodes.
Well, so you went at the right time if you were trying to go before the jams. But yeah, I thought, you know, 2 pack of openers instead of the usual 3. Little extra mustard on the Whales intro, which was great. You know, it's a banger. Whales is a banger. We've been saying. Some also might say that Hot Love was the easiest 8-pointer ever last night.
Ever.
It was.
Yeah. I don't think it gets easier than that.
No, it's
Tell you what, though, you know, Hot Love is quickly becoming my favorite opener. For a bit there,
I love it. It
was Turbulence.
This is the 7th. So they've played it 10 times now. This is the 7th time it's opened a show. And like, I love it.
Yeah.
Every time.
It's great as an opener. It's
like,
absolutely
you know,
excellent.
when I see him start to count it off, I'm not like, oh no, another Hot Love opener. I'm like, hell yeah, another Hot Love opener. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no, bring it. It is their best. For a while, it was Turbulence was my favorite opener. I mean, truthfully, Switchin' is the best opener. But, you know, as far as Goose songs go, we're going to call this a Goose song. Some people will want to call it a Basuda song, but it is the best opener they've got in their catalog right now, in my opinion. Absolutely killer. And then the Whales, yeah. It's yet another opener, and then Ate Up All the Cake again. I just love that this is regular rotation stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just gets a little bit more polished every time they play it. When they first started playing it, there was not much polish on it. So it just, I just like it more and more every time I hear it. And it's probably a nod to the fact that the first single off the upcoming Bon Iver record was released on the 20th. I'm sure the band is really excited about that. If you haven't gone and listened to this first single, I think it's called Speyside. It's awesome. Go check it out. It's kind of a throwback to the...
Wow, you're a fraud, Neil. You think you know the name of the song? You're a fraud.
No, I do
Fake
know the
fan.
name of the song.
Fake fan.
I do know the name of the song, and it's great. So go check it out. And that's probably on their minds. I hope they're listening to it. And
yeah,
it's really good stuff.
Well, then everything starts to happen very quickly. Earthling comes in, and this was immediately... You know, Brad, I was turning to you like, you know, I was like, I don't want to be hasty, but like, we're back. You know, 15 minutes of Earthling, and, you know, they start jamming the song, and I was like, okay, are we just going to get, you know, 12-minute funk version? And I feel like Earthling kind of ebbs and flows as a jam vehicle. You'll get a few versions in a row that are like really good and like long and getting jammed out. And then you get a few versions where it's like 12 minutes of clav funk. This one, you know, gets going, fairly quickly, Rick just modulates into the major key and they go full hose for a few minutes. And I was just like, this is it. This is the best jam they've played since Salt Lake City, because it felt like they fully realized the idea. You know, they went through, they took the time to explore all the space that they were, you know, getting into there. And I was just so happy that it was happening. But Brad, what were your thoughts on the Earthling?
I was coming back from the bathroom and I'm like, oh, well, it's Earthling. I I don't love the song portion of it. So I'm like, I'll just take my time and I'll get back in time for the jam. And the jam was excellent, man. I mean, I turned to you and I mentioned, it just had like some Tweezer vibes to it to me. There was like a descending lick going on, and it just had this sick Trevor bass going on. And I was just like, yeah, like this, I can live in this, like just, great funk, just good funky, like deep improv for an Earthling first set, so I'm here for that.
Amen. Neil, your thoughts on the Earthling?
This Earthling reminded me a lot of the Earthling they played at Northlands. Very, very similar vibes.
Yeah.
Triumph, just like, we've won and we don't know what we've won, but we've certainly won.
I knew what we won.
Yeah.
Jams.
Yeah, it was great. So, not much to like dive in on this Earthling. Interesting to note also that this is a 15-ish minute jam here. So it's not just that we were criticizing the length of the jams. It was just the content. Like it felt like they weren't really trying. And in this particular one, they leaned into it. They found a theme that they liked and they really explored it. And it only took, a few minutes, but that's what needed to be done. And then that's the theme for the night. It's just lots of excellent jams mixed into places where you might not even expect them. Later on the second set, there's one of my favorite jams of the night is actually in the shortest thing they played in the second set. So it's very, very interesting the vibe that was going on in this place. The band really was feeling it. Things just sounded different. Brad, you had mentioned that it's kind of the wails felt like a little bit different. Just I was talking about this the other day. Sometimes when jam bands are really on, there's something in the air. Just the things that they normally do, the really pedestrian things, just sound different and sound good.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of that right here. So really
100%. 100%. It was just, I can't say enough, like the last, couple of shows, I've been heavy on the criticism of lack of jamming. And I just felt like so overjoyed last night, during this Earthling. Like, Brad, you saw, I was just like, I was dancing, I was jumping in the air. I was just like so happy. And then they go into Born next and just, right back into it without missing a beat. They're doing this Born, we were talking about before, we were like, hopefully, they bring back the slow jam, like Eugene, Louisville, like, lay it out a little bit instead of the 2001 one. And I felt that they went in a different direction with this one than they usually do. Peter on the clav, Trevor really doing some cool shit in here. And this gets into some really cool space. This is one of those jams where they're getting into the groove and they're just patient. They're not in a hurry to go anywhere. They're not in a hurry to go into 5 different jam sections. And it's, this is like 20 minutes, and they're just exploring and taking their time. So I absolutely love this jam. Brad, what did you think?
I'm with you. I know, I guess this is my one time to bring out my one criticism of Born jams, which is because I love the song and I just wish that the jam that they could transition into a jam that fits the song better. Cause I just don't feel like it's almost like two different, it's like they end Born and then you could almost put an arrow into 2001 jam. They literally stop and start up another jam. And so I just wish they could go back to what they were doing in 23, where it really did fit the song better, the way that they were jamming it. With that said, this 2001 jam, it like you said, it went a different direction. And like 5 to 10 minutes into it, I was like, damn, can't believe I was complaining about this jam. But at the same time, it's a great jam once you forget that it's Born, I guess is my point. Like, just, so I really dug it. It was terrific. I got completely lost in it in the moment.
Yeah. Neil?
This one is really, really cool. I agree that, the patience is there. They were allowing this one to develop, and they were not going to run away from it. There was going to be no ripcord tonight, which is, kind of been the problem, is that they just run away from something when it sounds good, at least the last few shows. So, yeah, there is a certain amount of patience there, which I don't love to describe jams, but it's there. One thing that I really liked in this particular jam was Peter's clav playing, atypical of Peter, and just really tasteful, not the way that he normally plays it. Normally it's like the raunchy clav, and it's like super funky feeling. This is a totally different expression of the clav here. It almost sounds like, I think the intended way for this to sound of the instrument, it sounded like he was playing rhythm guitar in certain spots, and it sounded really, really cool. It's like a nice mellow clav, not the the funk clav.
A little bit of phaser, no wah on it, just like laying it out. Very mellow. I loved it, and I love that. And that's a very conscious switch for him. I think he's like, we're going to do something different with this Born, and I think the one thing that he can do immediately to take the Born in a different direction than it normally goes is not go to the vintage vibe. I feel like that's the thing that is usually like, oh, that's the 2001 jam, quote unquote. Or like, oh, here's a standard, Born jam again. But he immediately goes to the clav, and I'm like, okay, they're doing something different here. This is a conscious effort to kind of break the mold a little. And so I love that. I love when Goose does things like that.
Can I add one more thing, Ryan?
Yes.
Sure.
Which I mentioned before, but this was the first time that seeing Cotter, where he really, I was floored by some of the stuff he was doing, starting around, I think it was around the 17-minute mark. He just kind of changed the direction of the jam, and it, as we discussed there, went into like full-on Golden Age vibes there at the end of the jam, and it was really sick. And a lot of that was Cotter.
Yeah, and right before that, there was also that section that was kind of like Killing Moon-esque, which I really liked. I was kind of singing along like the chorus of Killing Moon. That was like, largely due to the progression that Trevor was suggesting there. But he, as he has been this tour this year, he was leading a lot last night. There were certain sections that were just amazing. Anyway, moving on, we get Turn Clouds and Everything Must Go to close out the set. Very high note to close out the set on. Brad, what were your thoughts on these last two?
I mean, I love Turn Clouds, and coming off in that situation, I actually thought it was going to end the set. So totally dug it. And then what did we close with again?
Everything Must Go.
Oh, that's right. Everything Must Go. And I've said before, the song initially I didn't love it, but I actually do now. And so it's when I hear it come on, totally enjoy it. And last night's version wasn't anything, it was pretty standard EMG jam, but it was great. It was a great way to close out the set.
Oops, wrong button.
Nice one, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
Turn Clouds was destined to come, right? We knew it was lined up. We saw it on the set list the other night. Ended up being played tonight, and decent spot for it. I don't know. Turn Clouds is such a weird song, and maybe I'm the wrong person to ask about their opinion on Turn Clouds.
You might be.
But it doesn't fit great in a set anywhere, despite being an excellent song. It's so strange. This is an awkward spot for it, but I think the Everything Must Go set one closer is sick.
It's settling into that spot nicely. I think it's been there like 3 or 4 times this year. I think. Oh, this was the third time this year it's closed the first set.
So it seems like they really enjoy having a small number of songs that they close the first set with, right? SOS is probably the number 1 on the list. So Ready, number 2 on that list. Then there's a handful of other songs that can kind of fill in the spot. But yeah, it does seem like it's kind of fitting into that role, which is great because I think this jam was really cool. When I listen to it, I just hear Rosewood Heart. It just feels like a very Type 1-ish Rosewood Heart jam, which is sign me up, dude. That's the good stuff. But the drumming was excellent in this one. It had that real driving feel that Rosewood jams have. And everything about this was excellent. Didn't go super far. I mean, it just felt like a Rosewood. It just had all the good elements of Rosewood. And if that's what Everything Must Go is, great. And hell of a way to just send everybody off to set break, in my opinion.
I wanted to call it the drumming as well. I thought Cotter and Jeff were on fire there. I think Jeff, the last 2 shows especially, has been playing his ass off and has been doing so much. There were times in the Earthling last night, the Everything Must Go, a couple jams in the second set where he was really sticking out to me, playing a lot of percussion. So it was really, really good. I love that. Anything to add here, you guys?
Nope.
Very good first set is what I thought.
So very good first set. Yeah.
Brad, how are you feeling at set break?
I was feeling great, man. I thought, like we talked about, the first set basically had, two quality jams that we had, or was it 3? So it was, you can't complain when you get back, and they were pretty much back to back too. So you got about 35 minutes of quality improv in the first set. That works for me.
That's more quality improv than we got in 2 whole shows in Montana.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that to you. I'm like, the first set already had more improv than you got in the last 2 shows. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was feeling the same way. I was like, I had the feeling that there was going to be a big red bird in the second set, and just that they were going to continue playing really well, and we were going to get, another big jam or 2, and we did. So come back out for set 2. Drive, Electric Avenue. Neil, you said this was your favorite part of the set or the show?
I mean, go back and listen to that Electric Avenue. It's incredible.
It is.
The space that they find so quickly in that jam is awesome. Like, I want to live in that jam forever. It sounds so amazing.
It reminded me of the Amsterdam version from last year and the way that they just brought it all the way down and Peter was on the synth. That's the Moog Muse right there, people, that Peter was playing in Electric Avenue, that new synth on top of the clav. Those tones that he was getting out of that thing were just unbelievable. And we skipped the drive, which we should talk about.
We did skip the drive. Let me back up a little bit. So the drive is excellent. Also gets to some really amazing spaces. And I'm just going to go back to what I just said a couple of minutes ago, which is this is one of those types of nights where no matter what they touch, it turns to gold.
Yes.
And that's what happens. Drive still on the shorter side. Fine. And then Electric Avenue after, like, everything just sounds great. And they just it was so effortless the whole entire night. They just slid right into yet another amazing jam. So you have that like really short Earthling Aurelian, effortlessly find a really good jam. Same thing here. Into drive, really nice jam, excellent drive or excellent jam in Electric Avenue.
Yeah, and Peter showing off that new guitar. I said to Garrett when drive started, I was like, hopefully, Peter wants to show off his new axe, and we get a little bit of 2 guitar action here. We did. It starts in like, sometimes with the drive, you'll get like 3, 4, 5 minutes maybe of just like, type 1, like the fast 2 guitar funk before they go off into space. And it felt like very quickly they departed into this like very just grimy 2 guitar zone, like Peter just laying into that thing. And the new guitar sounds great. I love the way that it sounds. But yeah, and then we get into the Bliss Zone. Reminded me a lot of the SPAC jam. Very, very similar kind of motif.
They've been in that space before a bunch of times. It's not a very unfamiliar jam. If you listen to a ton of Goose jams, you know this space. You've heard it. Yeah.
And I think maybe my favorite part of the whole drive was toward the end when Peter went to put his guitar behind him and the headstock knocked the Nord, but it hit the key that was in key for the jam. So there was just, if you hear like a random blast of synth towards the end of drive, it's because Peter swung his guitar around and accidentally hit the keyboard, but happened to hit the right note.
Amazing.
Which was awesome. Brad, what are your thoughts on this drive, Electric Avenue?
I mean, you guys pretty much nailed everything. It was a great way to open the set. Great energy. The drive, I actually really like that as an opening song in set 2, and it just blasted things off. Like, got the set off to a great start. From what I've tried to go back and listen to that, and I think from what I remember, it had kind of like 2 jams in it, almost like the initial, driving guitar jam, and then they kind of took it down all the way down and slowed down the tempo and then slowly built it back up to like another like Bliss peak at the end that I thought was pretty cool. And then, nice transition into Electric Avenue. And like Neil said, just found a great space quickly. And really, really enjoyed it. I was, when I looked at the time afterwards, I was like, damn, that was only like 8-9 minutes or something. I was like, it felt longer than that. So yeah, great way to open the set. And I actually think that's a solid slot for Electric Avenue. I know some people complain. I've heard people complain about that. I dig Electric Avenue. It's just like a feel good tune, and coming off of a hot drive and then being what it was as a solid jam too. It was the only down song of the set.
Exactly. I think this Electric Avenue had like the least amount of crowd sing along in an Electric Avenue I've heard in years, which was interesting. But hell, Seattle.
We don't have Jive Goose here to hate on Electric Avenue. I don't know
There's
how many
no
people
reason
really
to.
dislike Electric Avenue. It's just Jive Goose.
Yeah,
okay,
it's just
I knew it was somebody.
Jive doesn't like the song, and he's wrong.
He is.
It's good. Yeah. It's a good song.
And this version is excellent. But
is
speaking of excellent, shall we talk about this Redbird?
Yes,
this
I think
is
we should.
Excellent. Brad,
given that the podcast is about last night's show, we should talk about last night's Redbird.
Right? Probably. Brad, you start us off here with this Redbird.
I mean, this was clearly the jam of the night for me. I'm sure it probably was for you guys too. It just was an amazing jam. They it started in one tempo, and again Cotter like completely took it over and sped it up, had that thing cooking, and then they hit. You guys probably know it was a familiar theme that they were playing, that repetitive dun, 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 dun. What was that? Is that something that they've played? Is that another song?
I think it's one of those things that sounds familiar. But I said to you when Cotter pushed them into the double time, Brad, I think I turned to you and I was like, that's the Cotter effect. Like he has that instinct. Like, and I've said it so many times this year. It's like there's a point in the jam where he's like, okay, I'm switching the beat. I'm going double time, or I'm going to start pushing forward. And it's always the perfect time. I felt that last night he kind of was like, Rick seemed to be having a little bit of trouble breaking out of Redbird proper. They had kind of done it and then kind of landed back into a type 1 solo again. And then Cotter pushes to double time and suddenly we're just in business. Like we were out there, pushing forward. And this was one of those jams where it was a cackle jam. Again,
was there cackling?
A little
Brad,
bit.
Did you witness the cackling last night?
Cackling?
Yeah, it was Ryan cackling at the show.
During the jam.
I mean, dude, he was high-fiving. He was excited. Let me tell you, and I was too. Like,
with the amount of room that we have, I was just like, just like bouncing around and like,
And you remember the place was going crazy during that. I mean, there people in front of us were doing some kind of like synchronized dance and shit, and my wife was jamming her ass off. We were all having a great time. I looked around. I was like, this place is going crazy during this Redbird.
Yeah.
So
that last segment, the like super driving thing, and Peter so he's playing piano, and then the thing you can do on the Nord stage is you can layer on like a synth or whatever. That's how he does the marimba stuff. So he would go for those like synth chords. He would go and like he would turn on the synth for those 2 chords and then turn it off and go back to be playing piano. And he's been using it's funny, like he got a brand new Moog synth a few weeks ago, but like the last few shows, he's been exploring new sounds and ways to use the Nord stage as a synthesizer, which is fascinating to me. Like, you have this new toy and you're like, what can I do with this keyboard that is the oldest one in my rig? And he's finding new ways to use it. And yeah, this end of this Redbird was absolutely phenomenal. I loved it.
It's a fiery Redbird. Best one in a while. And keeps the arc of the set just on the solid upturn. Like just keeps getting like what's the word I'm looking for? Just like raging more and more and more as we go throughout this set. And love the arc of that set. No cooldown. We don't need it. We're in Seattle. We're just going to go hard all the way. Have we seen a written set list from last night?
No. Loomis and Getty, neither of them had set list last night. Where we were, we didn't see one. Yeah.
They did not have one at all?
No.
Or very interesting. Yeah. So maybe whatever came out. But I would suspect that there was like a 726 in there or something as a cooldown, and they were like, nah, like we're just gonna keep going. So if anybody notices that, tweet it out to the podcast account or something at the podcast account. so we can see it. But I suspect there was some kind of cool down song in there, but they just wanted to rage, and it was great.
Boy, Hams.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And at that point, it's like, Redbird finishes, and like I'm thinking, like at that point, like I don't care what they play after this. It could be like an 8-minute butter rum. I'm like, I don't care. The show has been so good. But then they go into Hunger Site, and I was like, let's fucking go. This is the second time weird. In a row that it's been a set closer. And I said in my review that I posted this morning, like, I love it in this slot. We've talked on this podcast a bunch about some of the ones from earlier this year that are like 22, 23 minutes, kind of taking 18 minutes of ripping Type 1 Hunger Site and then a few minutes of really cool jamming towards the end. And being in the set closer spot, they're using it as like we're just going to do the ripping thing and close the set. And this one is not, I'm not saying that this one is your standard, 13 minutes of ripping Hunger Site, because it is far from that. This reminded me a lot of the second half of the Cap Drive from April. I felt it was that similar kind of very uplifting progression. And I couldn't believe how quickly they found that space. Like, again, as you said, Neil, last night, everything they touched turned to gold. They were just sliding into those jam spaces, and it was like, surprise, we're here. And it's a hell of a way to close the set. Brad, what did you think?
I mean, you nailed it with the set closer. I think it's a set 2 set closer. I mean, we've seen different Hunger Sites that have gone, 25, 30, whatever minutes the Hunger Salt was last year. And it's cool in that way, but I feel like, when they just keep, it works really well as just a fiery kind of closer, Type 1, just shred away. And I kind of feel like that's how it was last night. And it capped the show perfectly. Like, it was just kind of like an exclamation point on the end of that show. Like, we came to play. Here you go. Oh, and by the way, we also have a good encore save for you. Granted, it'll be short, but we're gonna drop you a nice encore as well. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Neil?
Some big time guitar heroics from Rick in this Hunger Site. I love this as a set 2 closer. So when we had Josh Terry on the other day, after the Salt Shed show, where they played Give It Time, and he's like, it's a great galvanizing song to leave set 2 going.
Speaking of Josh Terry,
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Don't interrupt. I got it. Don't mess with my segue, Ryan.
So Give It Time, galvanizing song.
It's a song. The same thing with the Hunger Site here. It's one of their more recognizable numbers. I think, people who don't super know this band really well know Hunger Site, Dripfield, and Born, right? You get all 3 in this show, by the way, which we're getting there. Hold on. But I did want to say, Josh Terry, who was on after the show at the Salt Shed, he was like, we were talking about Fantasy Goose, and Ryan was like, oh, you should play Fantasy Goose. It's super fun, which, we all enjoy playing. We talk about it often on the show. Josh, being new to the game, shows up, dominates, wins last night. Absolutely
playing for
incredible.
Like a week. Yeah.
He's been playing for a week.
Golden Goose.
Hell of a guy. Wow. Hell of a guy.
Yeah.
But not surprising, though, that he wins it on the night when they play the Driptych in its entirety, which he himself said he is most familiar with. So really cool. Glad that he won.
Yeah. Driptych stats, thanks to friend of the pod, Adam. This was the 7th Driptych in the same show, and he said 4 quote-unquote imperfect and 3 quote-unquote perfect. The perfect ones obviously referred to Born, Hunger Site, Dripfield being played all together. But I would say calling 10-6-23 an imperfect Driptych is completely wrong, because that's as perfect as it gets. But that's not what we're talking about today.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Hunger Site?
That's it, man.
I mean, or the Drip even. Just great encore.
Why don't we go right into the Drip here?
Yeah, I was hoping they would save Dripfield for tonight. After Salt Shed, I was hoping like maybe they're gonna start placing it, more in the earlier in the show so we can get bigger versions. But I mean, it's still such a killer, 10 to 12 minute encore. Because it's Dripfield and it's Goose's best song. It's so good every single time. The lights were amazing. John Shuley in the chat, please tell them to stop with the digital vocal harmonies in Drip. I think they actually have been sounding good lately. I said in June I thought they sounded really bad. But I think Rick has it more dialed in now. So if he wants to use them, I don't hate it at this point. But yeah, what do you guys think on the encore? Yeah, Brad?
I mean, first, well, I was going to say, you did say it was their best song, or was
objectively,
or was that Rosewood? Sorry,
Rosewood.
I had to get the Rosewood. Had to get the Rosewood in there, but I'll give you Dripfield top 3. So probably my number 2. And as an encore like that, like it works. It's a song that doesn't necessarily need to jam. Of course, I want it to jam.
Yeah.
But you know, like you said, I would have preferred it tonight. But at the same time, you know, it kind of just fit perfectly for that show. Like we're gonna close this thing out with a bang and give you the drip it as well. So can't, you know, I mean, what a fucking show. That's all I can say. It was great 20th show for me, and thank you, Ryan, for twisting my arm a little bit and saying, dude, you need to go see some more shows. How about those Northwest shows? So and I was worried because they were coming after Montana, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna get sloppy seconds. And I kind of jokingly texted Ryan a few times during Montana going, whoo, dodged a couple bullets there.
Good, yeah.
So
I mean, they can play only so many bangers in Montana, you know?
Places Goose hates in September 2024. Boston.
Yeah.
Montana.
Boston and Montana did not get the jams.
No, last night felt to me like going from Boston Night 3 to SPAC. You know, it was like, this is not the same band that I saw 2 days ago. This is not the band I saw on Friday. It felt like, you know, completely different vibe. So I'm really, really excited to see what comes out tonight in Troutdale. It's going to be a blast. You know, Give It Time is coming tonight. You know, I feel like they're going to want to
alternate lyrics, man. The Troutdale
going down to the Troutdale.
You never know.
Short turnaround for that one. But I mean, that's a good bit. Hey, anybody in the band, if you're watching, you should do that.
I would love a 726 personally, just because I haven't played it in a while. So
that's what I thought. So I thought they were going to do the 726 drip tonight.
That's what I thought as well. I almost put it on my Fantasy Goose because it just felt too right. You know, they were just going to go out there and drop a 726
drip again. Hey, speaking of Fantasy Goose, Neil, who's winning?
All I know is that give me a minute, Ryan. I cannot wait to destroy you. So, like, if you're going to do this now, you have to be ready to spend significant time on this podcast listening to me talk about how I've beaten you.
I know
later on this year.
I know.
So, if you're going to do this now, just be ready for that.
Yep. Yeah. I know. That's the way. That's the way she goes. But yeah, we're excited for tonight. Another early show tonight. If you're in Pacific time.
Speaking of which,
in Eastern time,
we're going to start driving. If I cut out, I know you want to start.
Yes,
because we got to get there.
Back on the road.
I'm not going to get there till like 4:30.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Not very sportsmanlike.
Sports.
There's no sportsmanship involved in Fantasy Goose. If you're not bullying each other about it, you're doing it wrong.
And you're not playing the game right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you're not bullying each other over spreadsheets and predicting songs at Goose shows, what are you even doing?
What do you mean?
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Don't forget tonight's show is 6:30 Pacific time again, so 9:30 Eastern. So as far as West Coast shows go, this is as good as it gets for people on the East Coast. You know, like just close to 10 o'clock start time. You'll be in bed at 1. But we will see you tomorrow to recap tonight's show in Troutdale. Without further ado, enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon, wherever you may be. And